Hey, lovely freaks, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Amanda.
And I'm Hannah.
And if you're new here, hi, welcome. If you like things strange and unusual and true crime, you can go ahead and hit that subscribe or follow button. Or you can head down to the link below and you'll see a link that will take you to our social media, like Instagram, Twitter, and all that jazz. Okay, so as you can see, we're on camera. If you can't see us because you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes or wherever, go ahead and head over to our YouTube. And we have decided that we're finally going to do this camera stuff as of right now. If we get comments like, oh my god, you guys are so ugly, I'm going to be like, okay, well, this was fun.
That was fun, okay.
So play nice.
But no, yeah, we just want to thank you guys. We took a break for a while. We took 2 weeks, and then y'all knew about that, and we did the witch one, and then we took another break, and there was sickness. My kids were sick. She was sick with an ear infection.
Yeah.
I actually got an ear infection. It was weird. So, anyways, thank you guys because y'all stuck around, and we actually had some more followers on YouTube. Yeah. Yay. So that was pretty cool. If you're not following us on YouTube, go ahead and do that. But that's pretty much all I got to say. We're going to get into today's case because it is a long one and a crazy one. Have you heard this before?
I've never heard that. I don't think so. I mean, I saw the pictures and I didn't really see anything.
So, it's a pretty, I think a lot of people know this case. If you do, maybe there's some things that you can hear today that you didn't really know. But it's a pretty high profile case. This happened in 2009. Yes, 2009. So yeah, Josh and Susan Powell, they had 2 kids, Charlie and Braden.
Little bats on, is that a bat and a pumpkin?
On their face?
That's adorable.
Yeah, on their face. They're super cute. And that's Susan, and yeah, that's Josh.
So cute.
That's Josh.
That's Josh.
Yeah. So as you can guess, this probably has to do with like a father, wife, kids situation. She actually goes missing, and yeah, we'll just get into it. So Josh and Susan got married April 6, 2001. They had only dated for like a couple of months before they got engaged, like 2 or 3 months before they got engaged. Susan was young. She was like 19. Josh was in his 20s, so they were both pretty young. I think he was like 23 maybe. But Susan's family didn't like Josh like right off the bat. They just got like bad vibes, and you should always listen to your parents when they say they get bad vibes from somebody. They met at like a church function. She was Mormon, and he was also raised Mormon, but there's a lot behind that, and we'll get into that. So he was pretty loving and sweet and all that at first, and she just fell head over heels in love with him. That's a cat tail.
Yep.
The cat's hi.
He came over and something like pushed against my hand, and I was like,
That's my cat. If he comes in front, whatever. So anyways, Susan, come here. Oh, you're gonna grab him? So Susan grew up in a pretty normal household. She moved around a lot as a kid. Her dad, her family, they were all Mormon, and she was one of 4 girls, and they had a really normal childhood. I mean, she went to school, cosmetology school, and that's pretty much what she did. She made really good money though, in cosmetology school. I mean, when she got out of cosmetology school, she made really good money, and that'll come into play a little bit later too as well. So nothing really about Susan. Let's talk about Josh, because that is crazy. Josh's family was completely different. He was from Washington. His dad's name is Steve and his mom's name is Terry. He's one of 5 siblings. Jennifer Graves is his oldest sister, and that person will be important. The rest of his brothers and sisters are not really important to the story, but Jennifer is, because she actually wrote a book about everything that happened, and it's a really good book. And she was kind of on Susan's side because she knew how Josh was, and she knew how they were raised and everything like that. So, and when they met, this is Susan and Josh, when they met, you know, like I said, everything was all hunky-dory, and later on, Susan and Jennifer become really close. So, back to Josh. He grew up Steve and Terry, they got married pretty young, Josh's parents. And like I said, they were Mormon. I'll get it in a minute.
Yeah.
They were Mormon, but later on, they actually, Terry didn't, his mom didn't, but Steve did. He renounced the Mormon faith or whatever. So in the beginning of their marriage, everything was fine, but eventually Steve started becoming obsessed with porn to the point where he would go to, so this is back, like, you know, in the 90s.
Yeah.
So or 80s, I don't know. So he would go to adult bookstores and, like, masturbate, like, in the adult bookstores, like, just, you know,
Wow.
in the aisles, which I'm pretty sure is illegal, but
that is.
yeah. So he also would, Steve didn't see anything wrong with having porn magazines in the kids' rooms, like 7-year-olds, you know, all the kids had porn magazines in their rooms.
That's a problem.
Terry, the mom, she actually found the porn magazines, and she, like, confronted him about it, because she was like, this is not right. Steve also kept a diary. Josh's dad, keep that in mind, this is Josh's dad we're talking about. He kept a diary of sexual fantasies that he had of people around town. So people, like neighbors and stuff, like women that he would see, he would, like, write down these sexual fantasies that he had about them. Yeah. So Josh and his brother started picking up the dad's bad habits. They were kind of addicted to pornography. They were screaming at their mom. They were, you know, mad at her and just pushing her, shoving her, all kinds of different stuff. I think Josh even, like, threatened her with a knife at one point. So Terry finally files for divorce. She's had enough after their last daughter is born. And she wants to get custody of the kids. Jennifer, the oldest, Jennifer Graves, and I mentioned her. I think we have a picture of her. That's not Jennifer. That's Jennifer. So Jennifer actually...
She's pretty.
Yeah. She actually went with her mom, like, willingly. She was old enough, and she was like, I'm going to go live with mom. Fuck these people. I don't like them. So she went to live with mom, and they were going through a custody battle over the youngest ones, because Josh and his other brother, can't think of his name right now, they wanted to stay with dad because dad's cool. Dad gives us porn mags, and we can do whatever we want. So whilst in the middle of the custody battle, the youngest girl would tell her mother that the brothers examined her one time with her panties off. Terry even found out that the kids would sit in the living room and have family movie night, which involved watching porn. Yeah, like, we're all gonna sit in the living room together.
I think I've seen a documentary of this.
Probably, yeah.
Like, did she sit in his lap and, like, they were watching porn? Would she sit in her dad's lap?
Oh, I don't know about that. I think I know what documentary you're talking about. It's not the same one.
Okay.
No. I know what you're talking about. But no. So, anyways, just a lot of crazy crap. He also, like, Steve also came out at this time and said he hated the Mormon community. So the two youngest kids were forced to also share a bed with Steve. There's never been any talk that they were sexually molested by him, but later on you will find out that Steve actually, Josh's dad, he goes to jail for, like, child pornography and stuff like that. So almost positive he's a pedophile.
Probably.
Yeah, 100%. So Terry wins custody eventually, though, obviously, and the oldest daughter and the youngest go live with her, and then Josh and his brother stay with dad. And they don't have any rules and the whole porn thing and all that. So basically, as you can see, Josh is going to be, like, addicted to pornography and things like that. So this is Steve, Josh's dad. This is him. Hold on, I'll show you. There, I'll take us off.
Yeah.
But this is him when he got arrested later on for the pornography.
He looks like a creeper.
And all that. Oh yeah, it gets worse. Just wait. So let's go back to this. So anywho, let's jump back to Josh and Susan. So they got married. They moved to Utah. Before they moved to Utah, though, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, they lived with Josh's dad. So when they lived with Josh's dad, they actually didn't have a bedroom. They just kind of lived in the living room, and they had like a sheet up. And so everything kind of started off normal. Susan didn't really want to live there because Josh's brother lived there, and I cannot think of his name, but he was a psycho, I think, because in his room, which everybody just called it art, but in his room he had like nude pictures of women with like knives through their bodies and stuff like that.
That's not art.
Yeah, I mean, it was really,
There's a
really
difference.
creepy. He had all kinds of stuff. So anywho, she doesn't like him to begin with, and so she's just they're just kind of living there until Josh can like get on his feet, or they can get on their feet and buy their own house. So this is before they moved to Utah. Well, eventually Susan starts to realize that Steve is following her around. Like he started off kind of subtle. He would like come into the room when she was undressing and like just stand there, and she thought, okay, maybe he just like sees me, you know, but like what's, you know, kind of like what's going on type situation. Maybe they made eye contact and maybe he's just like freaked out. But then come to find out later on, she doesn't know this, but later on, and the police find out, Steve has tapes of Susan doing all sorts of things. He would follow her to work. He would tape, like video record her undressing, shopping, using the bathroom, even inserting a tampon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he would like
really
peek
weird.
around the corner while she was like in the bathroom or something, or he would, I don't really know how he would get those videos, but
Probably like a camera in the commode.
it could be, yeah, or like
But-
somewhere where she didn't know, or like in a corner or something. So eventually they leave because Steve actually confesses his love for Susan, and she was like, your dad just confessed his love for me, we gotta go. And so that's what happened. So they moved to Utah. Susan was excited. Like I said, she loved the fact that she was going to become a mom and a wife, and she loved Josh because at first, you know, he was loving and sweet and all that. So that's when they had Charlie and Braden. After a couple of years, Josh started to become a totally different person. He wasn't very physically abusive. There was some altercations where they did, hold on, trying to get to the picture. Where is it? There it is. There was altercations where they did have, like shoving matches and things like that, but he never physically punched her, hit her, or anything like that. But he was very mentally abusive and very controlling. He controlled every aspect of their lives. So she was the breadwinner. Like, Josh didn't work. He said that he was always starting a business, is what he would say. Oh, I'm starting a business. Oh, you know, I've got all these computers and I have to buy all this stuff because I'm starting a business, but the business would like never start. So she was the breadwinner, and she was a cosmetologist, so she's doing hair. She made good money, enough for them to afford a 3-bedroom home, but he would not give her access to anything. So she had to bike to work.
Couldn't be me.
Dead ass. She had to bike to work because he wouldn't let her have the car because they only had one car.
I'm making the money. Shut up. Sit down.
Exactly. So he also would tell Susan, like, you can't, the kids, they would go to daycare and they would have one meal at daycare, and he would tell her that's enough for them. They only need one meal.
I would not.
Yeah.
That would not be.
So he was like, no, they only need one meal. It's fine. They don't need 2 meals. He also, like, birthdays, Christmas, anything like that the kids had, he would not let them get toys or anything. One time he even made them split like a hot dog. Like they were hungry. It was dinner time.
Oh my God.
And he made the boys split a hot dog. The youngest one, I do believe, was malnourished. He was like a year old and he was way underweight. And she would buy like supplements and stuff like that for him. Mm-hmm. He also would give her a budget of only $20 a week to go to the grocery store, which
to go to the grocery store.
So this was obviously in the early 2000s, but still like $20 a week. That we're not talking like the 50s and 60s. Like this wouldn't buy you hardly anything. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, she's got kids that she has to buy diapers for, and formula, things like that.
Yeah.
So Susan got resourceful. She started making her own bread. She started doing a garden. She did like a vegetable garden, so that way they could have vegetables to cook and things like that. Neighbors also knew about all this because I'm trying not to sneeze. Woo. Neighbors also knew about this because she would call them and she would be like, "Hey, so is it okay? Like, can I borrow like a package of hot dogs? Or like, could I borrow like?" Because she said it got to the point, like she would write in her diaries. It got to the point where she was talking about like the only protein that he'll let us have is hot dogs, so I'm trying to like disguise it in things for the kids because they're tired of eating hot dogs. Meanwhile, Josh, he would spend money on anything he wanted. He had 15 computers. Don't ask me why. 15 computers. He also had motorcycle, exercise bikes, tools that he never used, like saws and all this other stuff, remote control cars, etc. There's actually a video because Susan was told by her lawyers when she decided she wanted to try to do the divorce thing, and she eventually does, and we'll talk about that. But there was a video, and you can find it online, where she is recording all the things in the house like that he has, and saying like, you know, this and that, this is all his stuff, you know, and showing everything,
like just to show in court and everything,
and how controlling he is and everything. So she even learned how to make baby food, which I thought was kind of cool, especially for, like, people make baby food all the time now, but, like, that was, like, a new thing. So he eventually started turning the boys against Susan as well. Like, he would say, "Do you want to go to church with mommy? Like, church is so boring. Or do you want to stay here with daddy and we'll go get ice cream?" Or something like that. So he was, like, trying to manipulate them to like him more. And when the boys would say, "Yes, I want ice cream," like, he'd be like, "Okay, well, see, they love me more." So he also, the only thing he would spend money on besides shit for himself was also, he took out a $1 million life insurance policy on each of them, like himself and Susan. And he also took out $250,000 on the kids, which is a shit ton of money. I don't even know what the premium on that is. It's got to be like way up there. Like, we're talking thousands of dollars each month for these life insurance policies. So that's kind of sus, because like, why are you taking so much life insurance out on you and, you know, everybody in your family? Keep that in mind. He would tell the boys also, like, you know, aside from the whole religious thing, like, he would try to turn them away from religion, because eventually Josh did turn away from his religion as well, kind of like his dad. Susan and Josh's sex life was non-existent, as you can imagine. People kept telling Susan, "You need to file for divorce, you need to leave him, you're depressed, you're miserable."
It's time.
Josh would threaten her, though, and say that if you ever left me, you would get the kids over my dead body. And he would also tell her, like, he had this instilled in her brain that for some reason, if she left, he was going to get custody, which, no, sir, you're not.
He wouldn't have.
Because, you know, she would have tons of evidence that you were abusive. And, but he just had instilled that in her brain for some reason. Now, Jennifer, like I said, was always on her side. Even one time, I believe, she pushed Josh, Susan did, because they got into like an argument, and Jennifer told her, she was like, "Don't do that." She was like, "Don't push my brother, not because, you know, he's my brother, but because you're going to provoke him to do something like bad." And so in 2008, Susan called a divorce attorney, and because she had decided, like, okay, I'm going to see if things get better on our 7th wedding anniversary. If things are not better, then I'm going to call a divorce attorney. Josh would confide in his dad, Steve, and Steve began to journal like a weirdo. He began to... Well, I lost my spot.
Journal.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
He began to write down like all the things that Josh would tell him about their relationship, which actually came in handy later. But yeah, it was kind of weird at first. He keeps like a journal. Steve does, like his dad.
Really weird.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, last time I kept a journal, I was in like high school, so I don't know. He's like a grown ass man.
It's not that. It's just the way that his dad used a journal. So like, it's kind of concerning.
Yeah. So Josh actually told his dad, Steve, that he hated Susan so much and he wished that they would have never gotten married or they would have divorced earlier or whatever, to the point where he would have like, not hallucinations, but he would have like daydreams about the police like coming to the house and being like, yeah, she got hit by a drunk driver. And he would be like, yay, she's gone. Like, that's to the
Just
point.
divorce, sweetheart.
Yeah, like, just divorce her. I don't understand
Literally
it.
just divorce. And
But
call
he
it a
can't
day.
because he doesn't have a good enough job. He eventually gets a job. He becomes like a computer programmer. But, I mean, she's making more money than him. So, like I said, in 2008, she calls a divorce attorney. And this is when they tell her about the video camera. You need to document everything. She would write emails to friends and family members, even her lawyers, saying that they were having extreme intense fights and Josh is being irrational. Susan tried so hard to make Josh love her. She would go on diets to try to be slimmer because he would tell her all the time that she was fat and, you know, she was unattractive. So she would work out. She would do all these things to try to love him. She would help him clean up his office. She would try to cuddle, hold hands, etc. And nothing ever worked. He refused to like even touch her. She kept being hopeful that Josh would get better because he actually did agree to counseling, but he didn't take it seriously and he like never went. Josh would also spy on Susan's cell phone calls, or phone calls, like somebody would call her on the house phone, like her friends or whatever. And so it got to the point where her dad was like, you need a cell phone because you're an adult and you have kids, so you need to have a cell phone. And Josh would never let her have one. So he bought her a phone, and that's where she would like call her friends and she would call the family and like tell them everything. So December 6th, 2009, Susan had a friend over that night to help with like knitting stuff, and they were playing with the boys. Josh actually cooked dinner that night, which was really weird because he never does. And Susan felt ill, so she went to go lay down. I think she had like an ear infection or something like that. When her friend went to the kitchen to talk to Josh and like help him clean up with dishes and everything, he told her that he was going to take the boys sledding. This was at like 4 o'clock ish. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to take the boys sledding tonight, which she thought was weird because it's nighttime in Utah. It's winter, but okay. And these are a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, by the way. So she decided, okay, that's my cue to like leave. I guess he's kind of subtly telling me like, get out of the house. So Susan was asleep anyway, so she decided to leave. So this brings us to December 7th, 2009. The daycare worker that Susan and Josh would take their kids to, she decided to call Susan and Josh because the boys had not made it there yet, and it was really weird of them. Susan would always call her. She would actually had a daycare like out of her home, and they were really close to her. Susan was. So she would call her and be like, hey, the kids are not coming in, they don't feel well, blah blah blah. No phone call this morning. So she called Josh's phone, she called Susan's phone, she got no answer. So then she called the emergency contact on there, which was Jennifer, Josh's sister. Jennifer told her, like, we haven't heard from them, what's going on, like, we don't know. And then she told her mom, and her mom immediately called the police. Terry, remember the mom, which is Josh's mom, but neither Terry nor Jennifer, I don't think, really liked Josh. And
understandably.
So
he's a dick.
Yeah. So the police went to the home immediately, and with the permission of the family, they busted through a window. When the police got into the home, there was no sign of anyone. However, they did notice there were 2 huge box fans pointing towards the couch, almost like something was having to be dried off. Really suspicious. And then they also found Susan's purse laying on the bed, unbothered and unopened. So after 18 hours of family and friends like trying to get a hold of somebody, they finally got a hold of Josh on his cell phone. He tells them that he was camping over in West Valley. He said that he took the boys last night and they went camping. Susan should be at work. She isn't with me and the boys. I don't know where she is. So he's calling like the detective, the detective is calling him. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I must keep it on that picture. So the detective is calling him and he's like, okay, well, you need to get home. The lead detective was Ellis Maxwell. We're going to call him Maxwell. So he's like, you need to get home. We don't know where your wife is. You obviously don't know where she is. So get home.
Yeah.
Okay. So Josh calls her cell phone. Meanwhile, the cell phone is right beside him in the truck. We figure that out later. Josh calls her cell phone and he's like, hey, babe, where are you? Like, you're not at work. You're supposed to be at work. Like, people are looking for you, yada, yada. So then the detective calls him back because it's taking some time. And he's like, where are you? You need to get home. Yeah. He said, well, I got to stop and pick up the boys some food. We'll be home after that. He was like, okay, well, after you stop, get your kids food, immediately come. Well, he doesn't immediately go to the house. After he picks up the kids' food, he goes to Susan's work. Keep in mind, they know that Susan's not at work. He knows Susan's not at work because the police have told him this.
Literally. And
so he goes to Susan's work, and this is what he does. He calls her cell phone. Obviously, there's no answer. He leaves a voicemail and says, hey, I'm outside your work waiting on you. I'm here to pick you up. Where are you?
But...
bitch, you know she's not at work.
Exactly.
Like, what are you trying to do?
If you're trying to, like...
cover your tracks,
you're not doing a good job.
Yeah. So, when Josh finally arrives home, Maxwell, the detective, takes him downtown for questioning. Josh tells them that he saw Susan at midnight that night before, so the 6th. He told them that he took the boys sledding around 5 o'clock. They came back. They watched a Christmas movie. Then at midnight, he takes a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old out in a winter storm in 18-degree weather to go camping because they said that they wanted s'mores.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
No.
They said they wanted s'mores, so he took them out to go camping just for the one night. When he also said that, because they were like, well, it was a Sunday. You had work the next day. You have work on Monday. And he was like, I thought it was Saturday. Like, I didn't realize the next day was Monday. I was wrong on my days.
Okay.
Sure. So, it's just crazy. So, Josh just kept telling them, I don't know where Susan is. Because Maxwell, the lead detective, was like, where could she be? Like, just where are places you think she could be? And he was like, I mean, if she's not at work, I have no idea. Like, that was that. He was like, I have no idea where she is. So, so the next morning, he was told, that night, he was told, okay, we'll come back tomorrow because it was late and they were just going to do a full interview tomorrow. So, the neighbors noticed that the next morning, instead of Josh going to his interview, he was actually cleaning the house and cleaning out his car intensely. His mom and Jennifer showed up to his house.
Evidence. Sorry,
Yeah.
I said lots of evidence.
His mom and Jennifer showed up to the house and they were like, hey, come on, you got to go to the police station. Like, they're waiting on you to do your thing. So Josh shows up late, like 5 hours late. The detectives are like pissed off already. And the lead detective, Maxwell, was like, did you know that Susan's phone was in your car? Or did you know you had Susan's phone? And Josh said, oh, I didn't know that I had her phone. I guess I have her phone. I didn't know.
But you've literally been texting her.
And calling
her. Like, the evidence is there, sweetheart. You're done for.
So then the detective was like, okay, well, I'm going to try to, like, go a different route with this because he obviously is uninterested in where his wife is at. So the lead detective, Maxwell, he was like, okay, well, why do you think your wife left? Like, maybe she was depressed or suicidal, and Josh like flew all over that. He was like, oh yeah, she was suicidal and depressed, and it was probably partially my fault because I am kind of not the best husband in the world, and we've been wanting to get a divorce. So I guess she left because of that. So he flew all over that because he was like, yeah, that's a great alibi for me to say like she's left her family and fled the country because she doesn't love me. So the police told him after they did the interview, they got absolutely nowhere. They told him, okay, well, we're going to go get your car and we're doing like a forensic test on your car and your home. So you can chill here at the station until we get done. You would think that Josh would chill at the station, but he did not. He actually called a taxi. He took a taxi to the airport, rented a van, to which the van he rented ended up, after they found out he rented this van and all that, and they got the stuff, he took this van 800 miles in 20 hours. We don't know where he went in the 800 miles.
Oh, I bet he was dumping off the body.
And no one knows where he went. No one knows what happened. Also, later on, they like piece all this together.
Yeah.
Steve was during this time.
Steve.
Yeah, his dad, Steve. He actually was unaccounted for the same time as Josh was unaccounted for on where he took the van for 20 hours. So the police even interviewed Steve. Of course they did. And Steve, what do you think he said? Oh, well, he said that him and his daughter-in-law, I was about to say mother-in-law, daughter-in-law's relationship was probably what led her to leave. So he painted her out to be like this person.
Isn't that the same? Whatever. Continue.
What?
That's the same thing that the guy said, right? Or is he's saying because she and Steve.
Yeah, remember Steve is Josh's dad. And Steve is like infatuated with Susan. And he thinks that they have a relationship, which they absolutely do not.
So he's making it think that they did have a relationship?
And he was trying to make it seem like there was this sexual tension between them, and she just couldn't handle it anymore, and so she left. Okay, Steve.
I bet.
So, anyways, eventually they find a key that Susan had. I believe it was in her purse or something like that. She had locked this key away, like nobody knew about it. She actually had a safety deposit box in a bank, and so they went to the safety deposit box, they went to the bank, and inside she wrote a letter. It said, quote, "For the family and friends of Susan, all except Josh Powell, the husband I do not trust." She also wrote about how she was scared for her and her kids' safety at times, and she said, quote, "If I die, it may not have been an accident, even if it looks like one."
Yep, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
It's a lot of evidence.
So friends even told police that Josh had been into forensic TV shows, and he had said to friends, quote, "If I ever had to get rid of a body, I would put it somewhere where absolutely no one would find it, like a mine or something like that." The police seized all 15 of his computers, and aside from finding all kinds of shit on them, they also found Google searches where Josh had searched for mines in the area near him. So that's suspicious. They did eventually go to these mines that he was searching on Google, and they didn't find Susan, unfortunately. But that was like a place where he could dump a body. The day after Susan's disappearance, Michael, Josh's almost like littlest brother.
Yeah.
He's not the youngest, but he came to Utah with one of their sisters, and we don't know why he came.
Yeah.
They said that they were just coming to like visit Josh. So when they were traveling back home, their van broke down. Keep in mind, this is the day after she disappears. Excuse me. The day after she disappears. Their van breaks down on the way back home. And instead of, sorry, I have hiccups. Instead of calling like a tow truck and being like, "Hey, I need my car fixed," they call an impound place, and they want them to come get it and trash it for scrap metal.
Yeah, that's suspicious.
Yeah. So the police find out about this, and they travel to where this place is, the salvage yard, and they take cadaver dogs. And what do you know? They get a body decomposition hit. Unfortunately, after they do forensic testing, there's not enough evidence or any evidence at all for them to link Susan to that van. So it's kind of like a dead end. This case is full of that. I mean, there's some things that I think the police could have done a little bit better, and there's also like things that they couldn't have done because there's so many different things, like evidence that they try to get and then it's not there or something like that, you know. So they have to have evidence, strong evidence, in order to arrest him. They can't just go off of like suspicion, you know. Jennifer, Josh's sister, let me go back to her so we remember her. She knew something was wrong, and so she eventually told the police. She was like, I'm gonna wear a wire. She's a bad bitch. She was like, I'm gonna wear a wire, I'm gonna go talk to my brother, and I'm gonna go talk to my dad, and we're gonna like nip this shit in the bud.
I really like her.
Yeah. So Josh at this point had actually was living with his dad because he didn't want to live in the house anymore or whatever. So sorry, that was your foot.
I'm pussy.
So she goes over there. She has dinner, and she asked Josh. She had him alone. She was like, "Hey, so what happened to Susan? Like, I just want to know. Like, you're my brother. Just tell me what happened to her." And Josh said, "I can't tell you anything. My attorney told me that I'm not to answer any questions." He then takes the boys and leaves. Josh eventually has to move in with his dad, like I said, and during this time was when Steve and Josh decided that they would go on this campaign smear against Susan's name. Even the press, Stephen would go to the press and he would tell them that, what was it? He told them that they had like this sexual encounter, and this is Steve, of course.
No, sweetheart, you're
so
terrible looking.
Yeah, he would tell them that they had like a sexual encounter, and like, you know, she was just a whore, basically. Like, she ran off with a man. They even tried to make it sound, there was another missing man in the same kind of area, and they tried to make it a total random stranger. But they tried to say that Susan ran off with this guy, and she's with that guy, this random stranger. So anywho, no one believed this, by the way. Even people would cover Josh and Susan's old house with posters of her, like, you know, missing person posters, things, flyers like, "We miss you, we love you." They would tie purple ribbons, because I think that was her favorite color. They would tie them to the house, like, just covered their house with all kinds of different stuff. And the police finally decided to get a search warrant for Steve's house. This is when they find all the things that Steve has on Susan. Not only were there video recordings of her, the police also found bags labeled Susan, like little sandwich baggies and Ziploc bags. In these bags, hold on to your ass because this is intense, there were things like toenail clippings of Susan's, used tampons of Susan's, cotton swabs that she would use to like take her fingernail polish off and like clean her fingernails.
Creepy.
Cotton swabs that she would use like in her ears and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There was hair of hers, etc. There was tons of stuff. There were over 1,500 pictures
Oh my God.
of Susan. So of course this dude's arrested. Like, they arrest the shit out of him.
Yeah.
They also found child pornography on his computer as well. So Steve's arrested. The Children's Protective Services come and take custody of the kids. Finally, you know, it took them long enough, and they give Susan's mom and dad custody of the kids. The kids at this point have been like totally just, they're not feral, but they are, what's the word I'm looking for? They need like anger management, and they need like stability, I guess you could say. So they're just kind of like fighting each other. They're like fighting the grandparents, like, you know, and they're still young. They're like 7 and 4 or 5, something like that. So yeah, I mean, they're still young. So one of the boys was eventually evaluated by a psychiatrist, and he said, "Mommy's missing, but we aren't allowed to talk about that or about camping." The boys even said, "Mommy went camping with them, and Mommy's in the trunk."
There you go. There's the evidence right there.
So on Josh's computer, they also found child pornography. Unfortunately, they could not arrest him for this because the child pornography that they found was cartoon child pornography.
Oh, whatever.
So you can't
Still
arrest
child
Yeah.
porn.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize you couldn't arrest somebody because of if it was a cartoon. I guess because it's not an actual child, but still, like, come on.
Yeah,
I mean, that needs to be a law.
still,
because obviously you're into child pornography of some
that
sort.
means that you're going to be into
A pedophile.
children, like
Exactly.
you're a pedophile,
Like, yeah.
connect the dots.
So, after this, they decide that they want to give Josh a polygraph test and a psycho-sex evaluation to see if he's, like, overly sexual and has a problem with it and stuff like that, which obviously he does.
Yes.
Unfortunately, before he gets to take the test or anything like that, something tragic happens. February 5th, 2012, a social worker went to the house that Josh was, like, renting because it was close to his dad's house, but he wasn't in his dad's house. So she goes to the house. Well, I'm not going to show that picture yet. So she goes to the house and she gets out of the car. The kids go ahead and run up to the door. She's like 4 steps behind them. And the kids get into the door and Josh sees her, makes eye contact with her, and slams the door and locks it. And she's like, "Oh shit." She's like, "Hey, let me in. Like, what are you doing?" When he shut the door in her face, she could smell the smell of gasoline. So she freaks out. She calls 911. This 911 dispatcher, you can hear this audio on YouTube if you want to. I thought about doing it, but it was a whole thing. So anyways, the 911 dispatcher is a dumbass, and I hope he got fired after this because he does the most ridiculous. He asks the most ridiculous questions. First, he's like, "I need the address." Understandable, but she had just. This is the first time. So apparently, they were having visits at the center, like where you go, like supervised visitations, like the center that they were at, social services or whatever. But there was so much media attention that other people that were there to like see their kids, they were kind of like, "I can't." Like, the media frenzy is, like, intense. I can't even see my kids.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Okay, we'll do it at his house." So this is the first time she had ever been there, so she didn't really remember the address because she used GPS. She asked the 911 dispatcher in the call, like, "Is there any way you can, like, GPS my phone? Like, I'm trying to find..." She's flipping through pages. She's like, "I'm trying to find it." She's like, "I can hear screaming. I can hear the kids screaming. I smell gasoline.
Yeah.
I need police officers here now." So she finally gets the address. She gives it to him, and he was like, "Well, where are the kids?" And she's like, "They're in the house with Josh." "Who's Josh?" "Their dad. These are supervised visitations. He shut the door in my face." And he was like, "Well, what did he say?" He kept asking who was Josh, and she was like, "This is a high profile case.
Like, get someone.
This
Let's
is
go.
a high profile case. Like, it's all over the news. I know you have to know what I'm talking about." So eventually, the dispatcher tells her, "We're gonna send somebody out there, but they have to respond to high-level threat calls first." And she was like, "This is a high-level threat. I have no idea what he's doing to those kids in there." So she decides to move her car so that way when the police get there, they have quick access to the house. So she moves it onto the street. So as she's pulling out of the driveway, she parks her car onto the street. She feels a whoosh, and she turns around and looks, and the house is up in flames.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. So hold on, let me move our faces here. So unfortunately, not only is the house up in flames, but also obviously they're all dead.
Yeah.
So what happened was, when the boys came into they figured this out later through forensic evidence and like, what's their name?
DNA?
No.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not as
the word that I'm
Words.
searching for.
Yes, you are.
As worse as I am. The autopsy. That's what I was looking for. So on the autopsy, they find out that what had happened was the boys had what looked like hatchet marks on their neck, and one of the boys had their arm completely cut off. They also found the boys on a mattress in the middle of the floor holding hands. Not sure if they were holding hands, like if he did that or if they held hands. But there was also in their lungs there was also gasoline, and there was also they figured out through the autopsy that they had actually died of smoke inhalation. So that means that after
alive.
Josh hit them, they were still alive whenever he set them and him on fire.
Man, I'm pissed off at the operator, honestly. If he would have worked a little faster, if he would have
I'm
been
sure
like,
there would have been a
okay,
cop
like,
somewhere in the vicinity of that house.
Exactly.
I mean, it's, so yeah, unfortunately, that is the end of that story.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
They haven't found the body of the woman?
No. So Steve, like I said, the dad, he went to prison. He also was released for child pornography. He also was released in 2007, but like right after 2017, excuse me. But like right after he was released, he had a heart attack when he got to like his halfway house.
Good. I hope he did.
The cops were on their way to like go to this house because they knew that he was having a heart attack, and they were like, shit, we need to get there like quick because we want to ask him questions before he passes away. So unfortunately they didn't make it, but they found Steve's journal, and in his journal he wrote December 8th, which was the day after Susan went missing. It said, quote, "I feel like Josh did a very stupid thing and probably disposed of her body in a truly gruesome, grotesque way. Yep. I think he probably went to some former industrial land just west or West Valley City and cremated her. His life with Susan was utterly awful. Josh wanted to do it this way to avoid a messy, costly divorce."
I literally can't. Like, do not kill someone. Just divorce them. Period.
Yeah, I don't understand it. Like, it wouldn't have been.
Do you
that
think it's going to be cleaner or better if you kill them? Like,
it wouldn't have been that costly if you both just would have agreed, like, yeah, we suck at this, so I'm going to go my way, you go your way, I'll see the kids when I see them. Like,
probably because he knew that he would never see him because he was a douchebag who was awful.
He probably knew that he would never see his kids again, yeah.
Yeah, but still, like, God.
So, yeah, unfortunately, that is the end of this case. We have no idea what happened to Susan. We have no idea where her body is. Obviously, maybe if Steve was writing what he knew was a fact, then I guess Josh cremated her. That would explain why they never found her body in any place that they searched where he had Googled. So, yeah, it's just really sad. And like I said, he killed himself in the end and his two boys. Mm-hmm. And that's just, it's heartbreaking to think that that's the last thing that they didn't even want to go to their dad's that day. Like, that's what pisses me off. These kids, the grandparents, Susan's mom and dad, they didn't want them to go. The boys didn't want to go. They weren't excited about it. They had kind of gotten into like a stable situation, and so they kind of knew like dad was a crazy psychopath, and so they didn't want to go. And the social workers and everything, they were like, well, he has a right to see them, blah blah blah. That's a whole nother situation that pisses me off. If kids don't want to go see somebody, they shouldn't be made to.
Then don't go to. Like, literally be like, well, the child doesn't want to see you, so it's not going to happen.
You have somebody that you think may have murdered their wife. Like, exactly. Okay, I think, let's listen to the kids on this one. But the social worker, she was fairly new. I don't know if this had been her first time or second time working on this case, and so she felt absolutely awful. Like, she blamed herself afterwards.
And it's not her fault.
No, it's not her fault at all. But she did. She blamed herself afterwards. And I can't even imagine. Like, I would be so pissed off with that 911 operator too. I hope they lost their job. But yeah. So that's the story. Unfortunately, it was not. I mean, we knew it wasn't going to be a happy ending. We knew Susan was probably dead.
I was not expecting him to do that. Like, I was like, okay, the wife's going to die.
The murder, the murder-suicide thing.
But that is just...
Yeah, that one took me for a loop when I heard the end of that. I was like, what? It was a shocker. But yeah, that's it.
Wow, that was sad.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any kind of justice.
I'm not laughing I'm laughing at the fact that you're pissed off. You're like, I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, this sucks.
No justice at all. Just nothing.
Yeah, it really does. I told you this one was long and it was going to be a doozy. You didn't believe me.
I felt like it was a movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's a twist ending. And then I'm in the movie theater, like, I'm going to get up and leave and be like, that was a fucking awful movie.
Yeah.
I hated that ending.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's just like, I don't understand. Excuse me. Oh, you guys see my cup? Oh, you can't because there's a green screen. But it's Baby Yoda. Yeah. He's green. So anyways, yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And the fact that he, like, my dude, you could have just left. And he didn't want to take a polygraph test. That was the thing. Like, he knew he wasn't going to pass that shit. And he knew he was going to go to prison. So he did call some friends and family. He did not tell them that the boys were with him. But he did call, like, friends and family and leave voicemails like, goodbye, you know, love you guys, whatever. But then no one knew that the boys were there. So, yeah.
I'd be pissed off if I was a cousin.
Oh, yeah. So that's the end of the Josh and Susan Powell case.
No, I'm depressed.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys didn't enjoy this episode, but you got some information out of it. One of the things I do want to say, though, to anyone out there that thinks that they can't get out of an abusive situation or controlling situation or whatever, just remember that you can. I think Susan never left because of her religion, because she did, you know, she was a Mormon, very devout Mormon, and she said, you know, that's not something that we believe in, because even her friends were like, even her friends in the Mormon community, like in the Mormon church, were like, girl, you got to get out of there.
Yeah.
And she had enough money to leave. She was making all the money, so she could have very well left, but I think it was her religion that kept her. But even if you're in a situation where you have religious values, just always remember that there's it's a touchy subject, because people always are like, well, I'm religious and we don't believe in divorce, but at some point, I'm pretty sure God or whoever you believe in wants you to get out of an abusive situation.
Yeah.
So don't think that someone in the church is going to look down on you. And if someone does, by the way, because we've had we're considered Baptist, I guess. In the Baptist community, we've had like preachers that wives cheat on them and they get kicked out of the church because their wives cheat on. Like, what the fuck?
I think that's
my wife cheated on me. Like, what do you want me to do?
I think that's ridiculous.
Like, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. So, anywho, I just want to throw that out there. If you are in an abusive situation, please seek help or seek someone to get you out of it. And not everybody's that lucky. I do understand that. I understand that there are some women that are so secluded from their family, their friends, they don't have money, they don't have jobs, they don't have any way to get out. But, you know, try to seek help from someone, because something like this can happen. We see this all the time in these cases where everything looks perfect on the outside, but on the inside, you know, it's terrible. And then the husbands or wives, we've had some wives that have ended up killing their husbands. They just, you know, snap.
Yeah. And or don't be that person who is like, well, why didn't they just leave? Like, you know, like in this case, like a case like this, you don't know what they've been through. And sometimes I just feel stuck.
Yeah. And
don't just be like, well, why haven't you left? Like, it's your fault because you haven't left. Like, you should have left a long time ago.
Oh, you say people talking about Susan, like, should have left? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she struggled with it.
Like,
and
I've had people who've literally been like, well, it's her fault. She didn't leave. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and she struggled with it, and she was going to leave. And I think that's what Josh knew. I feel like he knew. He had to have figured out he either saw a video. True. He might have saw the video that she did, or he might have
overheard a call
or something. Because she actually she tried to hide the video as much as possible. She actually gave it to a neighbor and told her to keep it. And then, so she tried to cover her tracks as much as possible because she wasn't going to tell him about the divorce until, like, she was leaving. Because she figured something bad would happen. So, anyways, just want to throw that out there. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you're listening to us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, wherever, make sure to go watch our video on YouTube because we're going to be up there now. So if you enjoyed it, let us know. Give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, let us know.
If you didn't like it, yeah. If you
let us know if you
have any comment about
like,
our
hey.
facial expressions or anything. Just keep it to yourselves.
Yeah,
we know. Just we know. Just leave us alone.
If you didn't want to see, if you don't want to see us on video, be like, hey, we don't want to see that again, and we'll be like, okay, well, we'll just, you can just hear our voices for now.
Be like,
thanks a lot. We really appreciate it. So anyways, and I want to say a big shout out to my husband, because we're using all his setup and all his equipment. Well, not the camera and everything, but the camera and lights is mine, but we're using like his setup, and he helped us like do this, and he's going to edit this video. So hopefully it'll be awesome. And, cause I'm not good at editing videos. I do photos, not videos. So yeah, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.